Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're uncovering the incredible story of Prince Aniaba, a young Ehotile royal from the Gold Coast, present-day Ivory Coast, who became a godson of King Louis XIV and one of the earliest black officers in the French army. His life reads like a cross-cultural epic. Diplomacy, royalty, and military adventure all rolled into one. Imagine being a West African prince brought to the most powerful court in Europe, dining among nobles, learning their customs, and eventually riding out as a French cavalry officer. That's not a fantasy, that's the journey of Prince Aniaba. Aniaba came from the Ehotile people, a coastal kingdom deeply involved in regional politics and Atlantic trade. In the late 1600s, France was trying to expand its influence along the West African coast, competing with Dutch, Portuguese, and English powers. Local leaders sometimes sent envoys, or in rare cases, royal relatives, to Europe to build alliances. Aniaba was one of these distinguished emissaries, setting sail for a continent he had never seen. When Aniaba arrived in France around 1688, he wasn't treated like a curiosity. He was welcomed as a prince. The French court, dazzled by exotic diplomacy and eager for influence in Africa, saw an opportunity. King Louis XIV personally took interest in the young man, and in an absolutely unprecedented move, Louis XIV himself became Aniaba's godfather at his baptism. From that moment, the prince bore his new Christian name, Louis Aniaba. Aniaba lived nearly a decade in France, and not just as a guest. He lived as a member of the royal orbit. He received formal education, learned French court etiquette, and moved through the highest levels of society. Imagine the halls of Versailles. Gold, marble, fountains, hundreds of courtiers. And right there among them, a young African prince in tailored European dress, turning heads wherever he went. One of the most remarkable chapters of Aniaba's story is his military service. He joined the French army as a cavalry officer, making him the first black officer in France since the legendary Saint-Maurice over 1,000 years earlier. He trained with elite regiments, mastered horsemanship, and gained a reputation as a skilled rider and disciplined soldier. For France, his service symbolized a bold diplomatic partnership. For Aniaba, it was a chance to embody both his African heritage and his new European identity. After years at court, Aniaba eventually returned to the Gold Coast, where the French hoped he'd help strengthen their regional influence. But reality back home was complicated. Shifting alliances, colonial politics, and local resistance made the French dream of an African foothold far more difficult than expected. Aniaba's later life is less well documented, leaving historians to piece together what happened next. Was he a mediator, a political rival, a cultural bridge? His legacy remains a fascinating mix of fact and mystery. Prince Aniaba's story shows just how interconnected the world was long before modern globalization, and how one young royal crossed oceans to reshape two very different cultures.
Today, we're diving into one of the most intriguing and controversial mysteries of French history, the life of Louise Marie Therese, better known as the Black Nun of Moret. Her story blends royal scandal, secrecy, and legend in a way that feels straight out of a historical drama. Except it actually happened. Imagine a Benedictine nun living in a quiet convent, who just might be the secret daughter of the Queen of France. A woman the royal family quietly supported, visited, and protected, while never publicly acknowledging her. That's the mystery we're exploring today. Louise Marie Therese lived at the Abbey of Notre Dame of the Nativity in Mort-sur-Loon, a small town just outside Paris. She wasn't just any nun. She was described as a black woman in a predominantly white religious community, and from the moment she arrived, rumors swirled around her origins. Her birth date isn't firmly documented, but her presence at the convent aligns with the reign of King Louis XIV and his wife, Queen Marie Therese of Spain. So here's where the story takes a dramatic turn. According to accounts that circulated in the 17th and 8th centuries, Louise Marie Therese was believed by some to be the child of Queen Marie Therese and an enslaved young man in the royal court named Nabo. Now, and this is important, there's no definitive historical proof that this affair actually happened. But the rumor was persistent enough, widespread enough, and taken seriously enough that it shaped how people understood the nun's presence for centuries. Louise Marie Therese was placed in the Benedictine convent at Moret, and records show that she was treated with unusual reverence. The nuns described her as intelligent, devout, and gentle. She reportedly had access to better clothing, better food, and special accommodations. But most striking of all, she maintained a discreet connection with the royal family. Members of the court visited her. She received gifts. The monarchy financially supported her life in the convent, quietly, consistently, and without official explanation. Why would the royal family maintain this secret relationship? The rumors offered one explanation. They were caring for a child they could not acknowledge. Queen Marie Therese, known for her piety, was also known to have suffered the humiliation of her husband's many affairs. If she had borne a child who didn't look like the traditional Bourbon line, especially in a court obsessed with appearances, the monarchy may have felt forced to hide the truth. Again, whether this story is fact or fiction remains debated, but the way Louise was treated suggests she was not an ordinary nun. Louise Marie Therese lived her entire adult life in the convent, passing away in 1732. She left behind no writings, no memoirs, only the echoes of the mystery surrounding her. To this day, historians debate her origin. Some see her as a symbol of hidden royal stories, others as a reminder of the presence and erasure of people of African descent in European courts. So, what do you think? Was Louise Marie Therese the secret daughter of the Queen of France?
Today, we're diving into one of the most extraordinary real-life stories history has to offer. The life of General Thomas Alexandre Dumas. If the name Dumas sounds familiar, that's because he was the father of the legendary author Alexandre Dumas, who wrote The Three Musketeers and The Count of Monte Cristo. But trust me, the father's story is every bit as thrilling as the fiction his son later wrote. Imagine this. A man born into slavery rises to become one of the highest-ranking officers in revolutionary France. A general commanding tens of thousands, renowned for his courage, strength, and honor. This is the true story of the highest-ranking black military officer in Europe until modern times. Thomas Alexandre Dumas was born in 1762 on the island of Saint-Domingue, what we now know as Haiti. His father was a French aristocrat, Marquis Alexandre Antoine David de la Pailletterie. His mother, an enslaved African woman named Marie Cécile Dumas. Now, this combination could have sealed Thomas Alexandre's fate as another enslaved child torn between worlds. But here's where things take a dramatic turn. The Marquis acknowledged his son. And not only that, he brought young Thomas Alexandre to France, where slavery was illegal. There, the boy received an education fit for nobility and entered society as part of the aristocracy. But Thomas Alexandre didn't want the cushy life of an aristocrat. Instead, he enlisted in the French military. And from the moment he joined, he rose with meteoric speed. Why? Because he was brilliant, a natural leader with unmatched physical skill. Accounts from the era describe him as towering, powerful, and fearless, with a reputation for personal integrity that set him apart. When the French Revolution erupted, the army transformed. Promotions were suddenly based on merit, not birth, and Thomas Alexandre seized the moment. He climbed from private to general in just a few years. He led daring cavalry charges, outmaneuvered seasoned commanders, and won the admiration of his troops, who called him the Black Devil, a nickname that captured both respect and awe. By the late 1790s, he had become a general of division, the highest rank reached by any black officer in a European army before the modern era. But fame has enemies. Dumas openly criticized Napoleon Bonaparte, not the smartest move when Napoleon was rising to power. During the disastrous Egyptian campaign, Dumas and Napoleon clashed, and the general eventually fell out of favor. When he attempted to return to France, he was captured and imprisoned for 2 years. By the time he reached home, broken in health and largely forgotten, his career was effectively over. But his legacy didn't die there. His son, Alexandre Dumas, grew up hearing tales of his father's bravery, resilience, and honor. Stories that later shaped iconic heroes like D'Artagnan and Edmond Dantes. Thomas Alexandre Dumas' life wasn't just remarkable, it was heroic. The world is only now rediscovering him, but his impact echoes across literature, military history, and the long struggle for equality.
In the glittering world of 18th century France, ruled by rigid class lines and powdered elegance, one man broke every rule simply by being extraordinary. A master swordsman, a virtuoso violinist, and a composer so gifted that even Mozart felt his presence. This was Joseph Bologna, Chevalier de Saint-Georges, a black man who rose to the very center of French high society. In a rare act for the era, Georges recognized Joseph as his child and brought him and Nanon to France. There, Joseph grew up free, educated, and relentlessly ambitious. In Paris, he trained at the elite Académie de la Boissière, quickly becoming one of the greatest fencers in the country. His master wrote that he had never taught anyone with such speed and precision. But Joseph didn't stop at mastering the sword. He also mastered the violin. As a teenager, he stunned Paris with performances full of fire, elegance, and showmanship. His talent ultimately brought him to the attention of Marie Antoinette, who invited him to perform in her private salons. For a black man in 18th century Europe, this was nearly unimaginable, but success had limits. When Joseph was nominated to lead the prestigious Paris Opera, several star singers protested, refusing to take direction from a man of color. Despite his brilliance, France's racism blocked his path. Still, Joseph composed boldly, violin concertos, symphonies, and operas that pushed boundaries. Some historians even believe Mozart may have borrowed ideas from him during his time in Paris. Yet history rarely celebrates the talents it isn't ready to acknowledge. He fought, eventually becoming colonel of the Legion Saint-Georges, Europe's first all-black regiment. He trained and led men who shared his heritage, proving he was not only an artist, but a leader. After the revolution, political shifts and prejudice buried his legacy. Many of his scores vanished, and his name faded from memory. But the music that survives reveals a composer of power, elegance, and originality, a man shaped by his past, but never defined by it. Joseph Bologna was not the Black Mozart. He was Joseph Bologna, a virtuoso who deserved far more than history allowed. If you enjoyed this story, like, subscribe, and tell us which forgotten figure we should explore next.